Credit card debt can be an overwhelming financial challenge, especially when you're managing multiple balances with high interest rates. Making the minimum payments often barely scratches the surface of what's owed, leading to a cycle that often feels pretty impossible to break. So if you're looking to pay down credit card debt more effectively, two popular approaches are worth exploring: the snowball method and the avalanche method. These two strategies help people eliminate debt, but they work very differently from each other. You see, the snowball method really focuses on the idea of paying off your smallest balances first, while the avalanche method goes after debts with the highest interest rates. There are advantages and disadvantages to each of these, so knowing how they work and choosing the right one can make a really big difference in your debt repayment journey. Now let's take a look at how each debt repayment method works, their pros and cons, and how to decide which one works best for you. First, we'll talk about the snowball method. The snowball method is designed around paying off your smallest debt balances first without any consideration of interest rates. Here's how it works. Number one, list your debts by balance from smallest to largest. Write down your debts from the smallest balance to the largest without paying any attention to the interest rates at all. Any old piece of paper will usually work for this. Continue to pay the minimum amount due on each credit card except for the one with the smallest balance. And step 3, put extra funds towards the smallest debt. Any and all extra cash you have would go toward paying off the smallest debt on your list. Number 4, move to the next smallest debt. So once one of your cards is paid off, take the amount you were paying on it and apply it to the next smallest balance card. If you were making a $100 payment on a card that you just paid off, take that $100 and put it towards your next card you got to pay off. It's pretty simple. Step 5, you're going to repeat that until all of your debts are paid. Continue the process until every debt on your list is eliminated. With the snowball method, you build momentum as you knock out debts one by one. Every small debt you pay off gives you a sense of accomplishment, which can be very motivating. It's kind of like rolling a snowball down a hill. That's how it gets its name. It grows larger with each turn, just as your motivation grows with each paid off balance. So why do people like the snowball method? So the number one big thing that most people like the snowball method for is that there's really quick wins for motivation. Paying off smaller debts quickly can give you a psychological boost. Each cleared debt feels like a win, which keeps you motivated to continue. Another one is its simplicity and ease. The snowball method is straightforward. You don't need to factor in interest rates or do any complex calculations. Just focus on the smallest balance first and work your way up. And finally, it has the potential to reduce feeling overwhelmed. Clearing off debts one by one helps people feel in control as they can see tangible progress along the way. Now, as much as people like the snowball method, there are some pretty clear drawbacks. First, you've got to think about the higher interest costs. The snowball method doesn't take interest rates into account, so if you're leaving high interest debts for later, you may end up paying more in interest over time. There's also a longer debt payoff time. Because of the extra interest, the snowball method can take longer to completely eliminate your debt. When you are putting higher interest debt off and paying it later, it's going to take you longer to pay it off because you're not putting anything towards your principal. And finally, there's missed savings. Focusing only on small balances might mean missing out on potential interest savings if larger, high interest debts aren't prioritized. Now, we're going to talk about why interest rates are kind of important when you're paying off debt and why you should really consider the next method. So the next method is the avalanche method. The avalanche method prioritizes paying off debts with the highest interest rates first while completely ignoring the balance size. Here's how it works. First, list your debts by interest rate, highest to lowest. I like to do this on a piece of paper. Also, again, if you prefer a spreadsheet, you can feel free to use a computer if you want to. 2, make minimum payments on all debts except the one with the highest interest rate. You'll want to apply extra funds to the high interest rate debt. Any extra cash should go toward the debt with the highest interest rate. This is actually going to save you money in the long run if you do this. And it'll probably make it faster for you to pay off your debt. Step 4, move on to the next highest interest rate debt. Once the highest interest rate debt is cleared, take the payment amount and apply it to the next highest interest rate debt. So kind of like when we talked about the snowball method, Once you pay off your highest interest rate credit card or loan, you're going to take that payment. If you're making $100 a month, you're going to take that payment and now you're going to apply it in addition to your minimum payment on your next highest interest rate card. So if you're paying your minimum payment of $50, now you'll be making $150. And doing that will continue to help you pay down your credit faster because you're going to be putting more money towards the principal instead of paying that interest on your cards. And step 5 in the avalanche method process is to repeat until you're debt-free. You're going to continue until all of your debts are paid. The main benefit of the avalanche method is that it reduces how much you'll pay in interest over time, making it a more cost-efficient option for debt repayment. So why do people prefer the avalanche method versus the snowball method? Number 1, the avalanche method has interest savings. Since the avalanche method targets high interest debts first, you'll pay less in interest overall, potentially saving a significant amount of money. 2, you're going to end up with a shorter debt repayment period. I did hint at this earlier, but by putting more money toward your high interest debts, you reduce the time it takes to pay off that debt, assuming you have the same amount of cash available for debt repayment. 3, financial efficiency. This approach appeals to people who prioritize financial efficiency, as it's designed to minimize the total cost of debt repayment. Now, just like everything, there are pros and there are cons, so let's see what some of the drawbacks of the avalanche method are. First, we have slower progress or motivation. If your highest interest rate debt also has a large balance, it can take a while to pay it off, which may be kind of discouraging if you prefer quick wins. 2, complexity. Managing multiple high interest rate debts can feel pretty challenging. The avalanche method may require a bit more discipline and patience. But just so you know, I actually have a tool for you so you can make it a lot easier to track your high interest rate debt. So it's not so complicated and complex. If you want to find out how to get your free interest rate tracker that I've made for you, go ahead and click the link in the description. Finally, the third drawback of the avalanche method is a lack of immediate rewards. This kind of ties in with motivation. The avalanche method focuses on interest rates rather than balance size, so it may take longer to clear individual debts, potentially affecting your morale. It might seem like you're not making progress when you actually are. You end up spending less money in the long run, and your wallet will certainly feel that. So, comparing the snowball method and the avalanche methods. So we have financial efficiency versus motivation. The snowball method is centered around motivation, helping you stay on track by providing quick wins. However, the avalanche method is all about financial efficiency, reducing your interest costs, and allowing for faster debt elimination. If you think you're someone who needs frequent rewards to stay committed and motivated, the snowball method might suit you best. But if you're driven by minimizing costs and saving the most amount of money as possible, the avalanche method is hands down the better option for you. Another item of comparison between the two is total cost of debt repayment. If saving money is a priority, the avalanche method usually leads to a lower total repayment cost because, again, you're putting more money towards the principal and paying less in interest. Since high interest rate debts are paid off first, interest doesn't have as much time to accumulate. The snowball method, by comparison, could cost more over time if higher interest rate debts are delayed. Also, when you're choosing a method, you want to compare the time to debt-free, right? Because the avalanche method minimizes interest, it generally leads to a much shorter debt repayment period. More of your payments are directed toward reducing the principal debt amount, allowing you to reach free status way faster. The snowball method, on the other hand, usually takes a lot longer, especially if larger high interest rate debts are left toward the end. This is because you will be paying more interest instead of putting your money towards your principal debt. The fourth and final point to consider between the two, avalanche versus snowball, is the psychological impact. The snowball method can be more psychologically rewarding because it lets you clear debts quickly. Even if it's all in your head, it really does provide more motivation. These smaller victories can build confidence and make the process feel more manageable. With the avalanche method, however, progress may feel a lot slower, especially in the beginning, So it requires more patience and motivation, but it's usually better for your wallet in the long run. So which method is going to be right for you? Only you can answer this, but choosing between the snowball method and the avalanche method depends on your unique situation and personality. Here are some points to consider. If you have several high interest rate debts, the avalanche method could be a good choice since it saves you money on interest. If your debts all have similar interest rates, the snowball method might be more effective for reducing the number of balances quickly. You might also want to take a look about your personality and your own personal motivation. For people who feel motivated by quick wins, the snowball method can be a lot more satisfying. On the other hand, if you're disciplined and focused on saving money, the avalanche method may actually be the option for you. You'll also want to consider your income and your budget. And if you're not budgeting, you really should be. But if you have stable income and extra funds for debt repayment, the avalanche method might help you get debt-free a lot faster. If you're on a very limited budget, the snowball method provides a clear sense of progress without requiring a significant financial commitment up front. You also want to think about your debt-free goals. If your priority is reaching debt freedom quickly, the avalanche method is generally the more efficient choice. But if maintaining motivation along the way is essential, the snowball method might be a better fit for you. So, both the snowball and avalanche methods offer structured, disciplined ways to tackle credit card debt, and each caters to different financial motivational needs. The snowball method helps build momentum through small wins, keeping you motivated with quick progress. The avalanche method, while requiring a bit more patience, offers financial efficiency by reducing interest and getting you debt-free faster. In the end, the best approach is the one that aligns with your goals and keeps you committed. Some people even choose to start with the snowball method to build that momentum and then later switch to the avalanche method to save on interest costs. So you're not really forced to choose one. You could do a mix of both if that's what benefits you. Whichever method you do end up picking, it's really important to remember that consistency is absolutely critical to reaching debt freedom. And when you understand the strengths and weaknesses of each method, you can make an informed decision about your debt payoff strategy, making the path to being debt-free smoother and more achievable. Also, I just want to remind you that I do still have that free credit card interest rate tracker that you can download. You can find it at my website, and I'll have the link in the description. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by credit card debt, you are not alone. But there is a way forward. Debt usually creeps into our lives unexpectedly. It usually starts small with manageable purchases and gradually becomes a more significant burden. Before long, the weight of compounding interest can make the situation feel overwhelming, as if the debt is an unstoppable force working against you. I know how that feels. It is not fun, but there is a way out. Credit card debt is a common challenge, but it doesn't have to be a permanent one. And that's why we came up with a great debt escape plan. This structured approach is designed to help you break free from financial strain. Our 6-step strategy provides practical guidance to take control of your finances and eliminate debt. With careful planning and determination, you can overcome this challenge and pave the way to financial independence. So we're gonna look at our first section, understanding credit card debt. Credit card debt occurs when individuals borrow money using their credit cards and fail to pay off the entire balance before interest is applied. With average annual percentage rates, also known as APRs, ranging between 16% and 25%, even small balances can snowball pretty quickly if not addressed promptly. Everyday expenses, emergencies, and impulse purchases often lead to accumulating balances, which, combined with interest, can become very overwhelming. So what's the impact? The weight of credit card debt extends beyond finances. On the economic side of life, it reduces purchasing power, limits savings opportunities, and increases financial vulnerability. Psychologically, debt is often linked to stress, anxiety, and even depression as individuals grapple with the constant shadow of overdue payments. So why is it so overwhelming all the time for a lot of people? Debt becomes particularly daunting because of the minimum payment trap. Many credit card companies structure minimum payments to cover interest rather than principal amounts, which keeps the debt lingering for years. Add to this the stigma of financial struggles, and it's no wonder why so many people feel so stuck. So here we go. Here is phase 1. Assessment. The first step in any battle is understanding your opponent. Begin by listing every credit card balance, interest rate, and minimum payment. You can do this on paper, you can do it on the computer in a spreadsheet, however you like. Just make sure you do it. This inventory will provide a clear picture of your debt landscape and really see what's going on. You're also going to need to know your enemy. Forgive me for getting a little nerdy here, but imagine you're preparing for a space battle, charting the enemy's fleet. Each debt represents a formidable ship. By knowing the size and speed of each, you can prioritize your targets, setting the stage for a focused attack. So, if you don't want it to be spaceships, you could also, if you've ever played Battleship 2, you're targeting. You gotta know what to do. Phase 2. Strategy selection. The debt snowball method involves paying off the smallest debts first while maintaining minimum payments on the larger ones. As smaller balances disappear, you gain momentum and confidence. There's also the debt avalanche method. This method prioritizes debts with the highest interest rate, saving you money on interest over time. There's also the hybrid approach, which you don't hear about as much. It's called the debt blizzard. It starts with the snowball method so that you can get some quick wins and then switches to the avalanche strategy for long-term savings. There are definitely pros or cons to each, so I really encourage you to watch that video that I mentioned earlier. When selecting a method, make sure you consider your personality and your financial situation. For example, are you motivated by small victories, or do you prefer the logic of saving on interest? Both methods work. The key is consistency. Phase 3, budgeting. A well-crafted budget is your navigational tool for financial freedom. A lot of people don't want to do it, but a budget is absolutely necessary. Track every dollar coming in and out, and ensure you allocate your funds strategically. You'll want to think about the 50-30-20 rule too. Divide your income into 3 categories. 50% for necessities, like housing, utilities, and food. 30% for wants, like entertainment, dining out. And 20% for debt repayment and savings. This isn't actually a hardcore rule. This is a good starting place. You can adjust these percentages to custom fit your needs. And you can even put a lot more towards your debt repayment than 20% of your income, if that's what you prefer. That's what I would do. I would probably spend a lot less on wants and really focus on debt repayment. So just remember, you can use this 50-30-20 rule as a starting point, and you can really customize it for yourself. You can also use apps like Mint or You Need a Budget or spreadsheets to monitor spending. I don't personally use an app except for maybe the spreadsheets, Google Sheets or Excel or anything of that nature. That and good old paper is what I prefer. But really, it's up to you. Whatever works for you. Regularly reviewing expenses helps identify areas where you can save more money. Phase 4, and this one's tough for a lot of people, but it is possible. You gotta increase your income. If you want to make real progress and repay debts as fast as possible, you should always be looking for ways to increase your income. This might mean you need to think out of the box. You can consider side gigs like freelancing, delivering food, or selling unused items online. Even small, tiny contributions to your budget can accelerate your debt repayment. If possible at all, you'll want to seek any promotions that you can, negotiate raises, or look for higher paying job opportunities in your field. Investing in professional development often yields long-term financial benefits. You can also turn hobbies like writing, photography, or crafting into additional income streams. Platforms like Etsy, Fiverr, or Upwork can help you reach potential clients. If you want some more ideas, I have a video on 7 side hustles you can start with no money. I'll link that right here in the video and in the description. Phase 5, expense reduction. Okay, here's where things get serious. This is the most significant action you can take to make an enormous impact on your debt repayment. You must scrutinize your expenses. It's really important to differentiate between needs and wants. For instance, meal prepping can reduce dining out costs without sacrificing nutrition. This is often a point people really struggle with, but when it comes down to it, cooking at home is often cheaper than eating out. And it can be done if you are consistent and really have the willpower to do so. Sure, you'll lose the convenience, but you'll gain where it really counts in your bank account. You could also try the no spend challenge. Gamify saving by challenging yourself to spend only on essentials for a week or a month or however long you determine. Not only does this curb expenses, but it also kind of resets your spending habits. You can also repair items instead of replacing them, buy secondhand, and take advantage of coupons or cashback apps to stretch your dollars a little bit further. Every little bit counts. Phase 6, negotiation. You'll want to contact credit card companies to request lower interest rates or discuss settlement options. Although, be aware, settlement is not the best idea for you. It will cause you problems in the long run, so if you can, please try to discuss lower interest rates first. Many creditors are willing to work with you if approached proactively. That said, there are some credit card companies that will not lower your interest rate on purchases you've already made, but they may give you a new offer on lower interest rates for new purchases or balance transfers. So negotiation can actually be really intimidating. I know it's that way for me. I would not be surprised if it was that way for you too. You'll want to prepare by researching options, practicing conversations, and reminding yourself that seeking better terms is a very smart financial move. Not a sign of failure. Also, I have a few psychological strategies that may actually help you in the long run. You might consider creating a chart or graph that tracks your progress. Coloring in sections as you pay off debt can provide a tangible sense of achievement. Again, you could also just create some cool thing in a spreadsheet. You could also celebrate milestones. This is a pretty common one. Reward yourself by hitting key milestones like paying off your first credit card or reducing your debt by 25%. Choose small, budget-friendly treats that align with your goals. You could even try joining online forums or local groups focused on debt repayment. Sharing experiences and receiving encouragement can help contribute to keep you on track. So the Great Debt Escape Plan is your blueprint for financial liberation. By assessing your debt, selecting a repayment strategy, budgeting, increasing income, reducing expenses, negotiating with creditors, and staying motivated, you can conquer even the most daunting credit card balances. Beyond eliminating debt, these strategies lay the foundation for sustained financial wellness. With no debt dragging you down, you can focus on building savings, investing, and achieving your dreams. So now it's time to begin your journey. Remember, every great adventure starts with a single step. Pick up a pen, list your debts, and commit to escaping the clutches of credit card debt once and for all. Financial freedom is within your reach. Grab it. Also, if you're interested, I do still have that free interest rate tracker available on my website. You can find the link for that in the description. I usually talk about all things personal finance, credit, and real estate, but I wanted to add a few more things in. I want to share some of the things that I'm interested in talking about with you, and a lot of that is stuff in the news. So let's take a look. So I see today, I am on X all the time. You have to be careful with what you read on X, but right now we know that Donald Trump has been in office for about 2 weeks, and he has been ruffling pretty much everybody's feathers you could possibly ruffle. It is the evening right now, late in the evening, by the way. I should probably get ready for bed. But we just have breaking news that Panama agrees to facilitate and offer free passage to U.S. Navy ships through Panama Canal following visit from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and agrees to end China's Panama Canal deal and to leave from China's 2017 Belt and Road Initiative. This is a really big deal for Trump. People don't like what he's been doing because they think he's a bully, but you know what? Bully he may be, he's effective, and this is huge for the United States, and it is, quite frankly, the influence China had on the Panama Canal was a national security threat, and it was a trade threat. I mean, it was so many things. It was not cool. So this is huge. So I have headlines from X on here. This is definitely some of the things that I've been seeing today that are going to be a big deal. And it is not a surprise, but here's the headline. Mass protests against ICE raids block LA highways. Let me tell you, it is not just LA. It's all over the coastal cities and even in the southern cities along the border. So, but here is what's happening in LA. Thousands of people have taken to the streets of Los Angeles and other U.S. cities to protest President Trump's recent policies on illegal immigration. Demonstrators expressed their dissent by blocking highways and engaging in various forms of protest, including flag displays. The protests stem from a reaction to increased ICE activities and proposed deportation measures. Social media posts reflect a spectrum of sentiments, from support for the deportation policies to criticism of the protesters' actions, particularly regarding the nationalistic expressions. So, this is not a surprise to me. So this actually looks strikingly similar to something we experienced up here in Washington, in Seattle, 1-2 years ago, and time's gone really fast. We've had illegal protests, pedestrians entering onto the freeway. It was bad. When you disrupt traffic, people who are trying to get home from work, people who are on their way to the hospital, I mean, just, you can't do that. You are actually putting people's lives at risk. And then those people, often they get angry and they will just put the pedal to the metal and they will run through a crowd. It's happened. It happened in Seattle. We had a death from that. This behavior, it never, ever supports the cause. It always hurts it. I don't care what the cause is. It's a psychological thing. If you do bad things that hurt other people to try and get a point across, then they're not going to agree with you because you did the bad thing. So I don't know what they think they're doing. They're putting their lives at risk. They're putting other people's lives at risk. They are not going to get their way from this. They are going to turn more liberals against immigration policies that are popular in California. It's a self-defeating act. That's what it is that comes down to it. It's very disappointing to see this. You know, it'd be one thing if they just stood on the sideline, marched around in a park, you know, did things the right way. Because when you have a large group of people to make a statement, but you're not hurting people, it gets attention. And it will garner sympathy. But the second you interfere and you start harming people, and don't make no mistake, this is not innocent just standing blocking a freeway. They are harming they're making it so ambulances can't get to the doctors. They're making it so other workers can't go places. Firefighters, we just had the fires in California, just like in LA 2 weeks ago. Actually, I think I read it's still burning, technically, just not as much. But yeah, this is not good. It's not going to help. You're getting attention, but it's not going to help your cause. So another really popular headline this week was that Trump tariffs spark economic retaliation from Canada. Following new tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump on imports from Mexico, Canada, and China, there has been significant economic backlash. Well, I don't know if I'd call it economic backlash yet. Canada, in response, has announced 25% tariffs on $155 billion of American goods. I don't know. This is AI generated, so sometimes they get things wrong, so I don't know if those numbers are correct. I can verify that Canada did announce a retaliatory 25% tariff on U.S. goods. Specifically targeting, this is the gross part, specifically targeting red states. So they are specifically targeting Texas, Florida, Georgia, things like that. The Canadian dollar has hit its lowest level against the US dollar since 2003. Wow! I have not verified that, but that is, I was just kidding. So that is something. And it's been causing notable volatility in global currency markets. Both countries have engaged in retaliatory trade measures. Yes, Mexico too. Escalating tensions. Public and official reactions range from criticism of the tariffs' impact on consumers to concerns about the long-term economic relationship between the U.S. and its neighbors. Sorry. It says, breaking. Republican Senator Mitch McConnell speaks out against Trump's tariffs. I, at this point, don't really care about anything Mitch McConnell says. I think he needs to retire. I'm not going to go down the list, probably the length of Santa's naughty or nice list, of why I just don't want to hear it from Mitch McConnell. President Trump told talks with Canada and Mexico tomorrow to discuss tariffs. Not surprising. I'm not sure if we're really going to see the tariffs happen yet. I mean, it's likely. And even if it does happen, it might only be for a short period. But right now, it's just everything's kind of up in the air. I don't know what's going to happen. This guy says the U.S. anthem gets booed at the Raptors game. I understand that a lot of Canadians are angry and upset, but realistically, each country is a sovereign country with their sole responsibility to take care of their own sovereign country. It is not required for a sovereign country to support another sovereign country. Sure, it can be viewed as nice, but I think it was a mistake for Canada to become so reliant on the U.S. to begin with. And keep in mind, I am American, I am not Canadian. I just think from a strategic policy in general, you should not be relying on other countries if you're a sovereign country. And if the United States does do this tariff thing, I would absolutely love to see us reinvigorate our whole farming sector. I want to buy American beef. I don't want to buy beef from Brazil or China or wherever, because it comes from all over. I don't want Mexican avocados. I want California avocados. I don't want Mexican tomatoes. I want tomatoes. Again, you can get it from California, but actually, tomatoes are pretty easy to grow. You may not know this about me, but I love gardening, and you can grow tomatoes inside your house because they are self-pollinating. You can grow tomatoes anywhere if you have temperature control. I mean, these are just a number of things that I would like to see. We can absolutely reinvigorate our agriculture here in the United States so that we're self-reliant. There's a lot of things we can grow here that we don't need to buy from another country. If we do that, there will be growing pains, but in the long run, it would be the best for the health of the country. Going through high school, I was taught about, trade and how, global trade is great. This was almost 20 years ago. And I just kind of took everyone's word for it, but then I started really thinking about stuff, and it's like, well, maybe not. I mean, what happens if you go to war with somebody else and then, you've lost? Or what if one of your partners goes to war and gets obliterated and now you've lost your source of food? It's just a terrible strategy for trade, for national security, health. I mean, it's just extremely questionable. And the entire reason it was done was for profits to begin with. Let's be clear. It was cheaper to outsource from another country, so we did. But yeah, so that's worst case scenario. There would be growing pains, but in the long run, I think it would actually really strengthen our country. That's just my opinion. Like I said, I understand why Canadians are upset. If I was a Canadian, I would be absolutely terrified right now. So I am so sorry for you guys. But at the same time, sovereign countries are not responsible for other sovereign countries. That's just it. And so, actually, one more thing I wanted to add. Pierre Poilievre released a video today, and I actually really like him a lot, and I think that he should be the Prime Minister. He's a very good leader, and I think his video showed a lot of strength, but he said one thing, and he said it multiple times, that I disagreed with. And he was saying that this move by Trump was unjust. And I take issue with that because there is no justice here. There's no law requiring that another country trade with you. Do you think it's unfair? Maybe. There's no legal obligation. You can think it's unfair if you want, right? But to compare that to justice and saying that it's unjust, that something was so wrong that was done to you, That's just insane to me. So, yeah, you can think it's a sleazy move. You can disagree with it. But to go so far as to use the term unjust as if it were a crime that was done, that's not realistic. But pretty much everything else Poilievre said, I think, showed that he was a very strong leader. And I saw another clip later on where he kind of covered his tracks because he was really aggressive at first. And he reiterated that America and Canada has always been friends. And that we should still be friends and kind of work through this mess. This one's interesting. I actually only saw this little bit a little earlier tonight. But I've heard rumblings about it. If you look on the political right side of Twitter, you see this stuff all the time. If you are not familiar with conservative point of view, they're for property rights, individual liberties. Basically, they just want to be free. They want the government to defend the country and then leave everybody else alone, which is actually the original intent of when our country was founded. But I'm not going to get into that right now. So part of that would be, well, against taxes, and a big one is property taxes. It says, Elon Musk backs abolition of property taxes. A discussion on social media platforms has highlighted calls for the abolition of property taxes in the United States, with public figures like Elon Musk expressing support for such reforms. This follows remarks by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who has prioritized property tax relief as an emergency item for the current legislative session, citing an affordability crisis for many Texans. I'm mixed on this. Because, well, first of all, I live in the Seattle area, so Democrats, liberals, they love taxes. Taxes, 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 taxes. And that's okay. I voted Democrat for almost my entire voting career up until a few years ago, and then I started identifying as independent. But I have firsthand experience of the way a liberal thinks, and so it is very much, well, yes, I see this bill or this initiative or whatever on the ballot, and they are saying, oh, let's pay this tax and then we can have this benefit for it. Like, usually, most often, it'll be for supporting like a tax levy for the local schools or the fire department or something like that. And so it's something good for the community usually, or something that's supposed to be good for the community. So the thinking is, oh, well, that's just a little bit more money. Sure. But they do that every time. And so when you do it every single time, it starts adding up. And then you end up, gosh, I haven't even looked at what my parents' property taxes are. Before COVID, they were about $6,000 a year, which was a lot. So they've probably increased since then. My property taxes used to be, when we first moved here, were $3,000 because we live in a different area. But it's become more liberal and they've been passing a lot more taxes. So I think we're looking closer to $4,500, maybe almost $5,000 a year. And you can think that that's not a lot, but I mean, it is, especially if you're not making a large income. And the people that get hurt the most, and I've seen this a lot. I've lived in the Seattle area my whole life, and it is so sad. The people that get hurt the most are the elderly people who have lived here their whole life. They're 65 or older. They've paid off their house. They've lived in it since the 1950s. But the property taxes are too high, and they're on a fixed income. And even with the senior discount, because there is one, even with the senior discount, it's their fixed income does not increase. And then they get pushed out of their house and they have to leave the home that they've had for 60 years. And that's how you get gentrification, which is something the left always claim to be against. But they actually are a very large contributing force to it. So what happens is these senior citizens who have made this area what it is and dedicated their life to their home and their house and their community get pushed out and have to move somewhere cheaper. Then you get a younger, wealthier person that comes in and buys up the house. And then you have the insane Seattle housing market that we have today. That is the simple rundown. If you want to go the route of no property taxes, I understand that from a conservative and even a libertarian point of view. It is very close to the original intent of what our founders in the United States wanted. However, even back then, there were small taxes. There was no federal income tax, but there were groups that would come together, pool their money together to, maintain the road and sewage. If you learn about Benjamin Franklin, he established one of the first taxes to do just that. But it was not a federal income tax. So there's a key distinction there, and it was voluntary. At least that's my understanding. At the very least, I do think that citizens who are senior citizens shouldn't have to pay property taxes, especially if they're on fixed incomes. Like, they've paid in their whole life. Let them live out the remainder of their days in the home that they worked for 50, 60 years. I know I was just saying unjust. I think that that is unjust. So I would not be opposed to that. As far as other property taxes go, the world we are in today is not the world we had 250 years ago. So we do need roads, we do need fire departments, we do need police. There should be a property tax. If we get rid of a property tax, we're going to have an insanely high sales tax that will affect the poorest people in the communities. I mean, that's just, how else are they going to get it? It's either that, they might try to do a more excise tax on house sales. But the easiest way to fund is a sales tax. And I think that that's the route, and I think that that would hurt more people. And it would hurt the people that don't own houses. I don't know what the answer is. There's some pretty extreme pros and cons. Regardless, at a bare minimum, I think senior citizens should be exempt from paying property taxes. That's me. You may disagree. This one's quite interesting. So, I'm not going to get into full detail on this one, but Elon Musk got access to USAID, which is basically the organization that is set aside to decide where all the funds that the government wants to donate to whatever groups to do good in the communities or across the world. That is the most layman's explanation I can give you. But I have seen so many things popping up about this, including that USAID gave millions upon millions to an NGO that Lindsey Graham was the director of, really high position. So Lindsey Graham, who serves in our Congress, is a direct beneficiary of millions of dollars in some weird roundabout way that sure looks like money laundering. Elon Musk's first response was, is this legal? And I think we need to find that out. I think that you suspect it, right? For years, you suspect that there's money laundering and money changing hands through Congress and the government, but they have figured out a way to do it, and they've done it. It's just, and that's just one example. By the way, that's still unverified, so we don't know for sure, but it sure seems like that was a real thing, and that needs to be looked into. At the very least, we have been just throwing money at organizations that should not have government funds handed to them. We do know that. That is a fact. Okay, so regardless of what you feel of Trump, I don't agree with him on everything, but I do find him kind of funny. And I think that if you cannot laugh at some of the things that he says, you really need to rethink yourself. So right here, let's listen to what he says.
USAID, or what's going on there?
Well, it's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
He says it's run by radical lunatics, and he says it twice for emphasis. So just his hyperbole that he says, I mean, it's comedic. Even if you completely disagree with him, you gotta give him credit. He's a comedian a lot of the time. In my life, and I've had quite a few presidents in my time now, I'm getting old, getting up there, I've never seen a president talk the way that he does. It is very entertaining. Okay, and then enough of politics. Maybe I'll take a look at, popular culture stuff. The Grammys were tonight, I guess. I'm not going to show the pictures, but Kanye kind of made a scene. He had his wife there, pretty much nude, kind of shocking. I read they got kicked out. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I've never seen anything like that at a formal affair. So or even a semi-formal affair. That was something. So yeah, the headline for that was Kanye and Bianca at Grammys, fashion or scandal. Definitely scandal. There was basically like a sheer net on her, not even a net. There was nothing there. You kind of need fabric to be fashion. I was not expecting this. Megan 2.0 teaser and poster release. This was like such a popular movie. I can't even call it a cult classic necessarily because they say that it has to like fail and then become popular later, but I think that I watched the first one. It's just so ridiculous, some of those scenes, that it was just so popular. The upcoming film Megan 2.0 has been announced, featuring the return of the character Megan, who has been upgraded to confront a military version of herself. So it's kind of like the T-1000 upgrade of Megan. Okay. Designed to destroy humanity. That's exactly what it is. Megan T-1000. The teaser showcases Megan's menacing yet stylish return, highlighting her new role, which hints at redemption. How does a robot try to redeem itself? How do you try to redeem yourself if you're a robot and you don't have a soul? You don't necessarily need to believe that. She's a computer. The movie is scheduled for a theatrical release on June 27th. That's a good date. That's the start of the summer film season. Yeah, so Megan is basically T2, and she's gonna go up against military Megan, which is like T-1000. I have a feeling people will go see this and they might enjoy it because it's gonna be ridiculous. But I also suspect it's probably not gonna do as well as the first one. That's often the case for movies. Oh my goodness, that dancing is ridiculous. All right, I am gonna look at one of my favorite things to do is the U.S. debt clock. I just found this out not that long ago. You can go to the U.S. National Debt Clock, and it keeps real-time updates. It's usually, I think a lot of people access it in the middle of the day because it usually has a really hard time loading for me in the day. But when you check in the night, it's not as slow. They also have an app. I do not have that. I like to come here specifically just to look at the Doge clock. Yesterday it was at like 47 billion and now we're at 51 billion. This clock is speeding up. It's definitely speeding up. And so it'll be so cool to see how long it takes to get to 1 trillion. I think he's gonna do it. I really do. How long is it gonna take? February 2nd, we are at 51 billion saved. Alright, and for those of you that usually pay attention to my personal finance stuff, on here you can also actually see how much savings the average family in the United States has in their savings accounts, and it's $9,358. So if you somehow have more than that, you are doing better than most. You can also see your personal debt per citizen. That is not your personal debt, but if you took everybody's personal debt and then averaged it out between each citizen in the United States, you'd have $75,000. Down here you can also look at the total credit card debt nationwide and how much debt is held per holder. So if you have less than $8,433 in credit card debt, you are doing better than the average. So that's something to think about and hopefully give you some more motivation. Thanks so much for watching today and listening to me ramble. I mean, that's all it is. But I enjoy doing it and I enjoy sharing my thoughts with you. So if you liked hearing what you did, go ahead and click like and subscribe. Also, keep in mind that I do still have that free interest rate tracker if you're trying to pay down your credit card debt. I'll link that in the description below. I guess I will see you guys next time.